Well, hello my friends. Here we are again. Time for a archery lesson. Some theory. Perhaps some things that you didn't really realize or hadn't thought about. For instance, if we have Olympic archers, they have sights, they have plungers, they have drop-away shelves, they have balance bars, they have all these kinds of things, and they have a clicker. They actually have a clicker to tell them when to let go. That's because their real forms are not very good, so they use mechanical devices to set themselves up. But we don't have that. So we have our bodies, and I'm going to show you how we can use our bodies as a clicker, as a spot check, all these things. So watch. First of all, we have a body. And the part of the body that shoots the arrow is the upper part of the body. Now, rather than have a clicker to tell me exactly when it's back, click, oh, let go. I know that my left arm is only so long. So if I hold it out straight, it will be the same length. It's the same length if it's held out straight. But when these people start telling you, bend your elbow, don't really straighten out, you know, that's causing you to vary. And that's not consistent at all. You have to hold it out and say stiffly even, whatever you want to call it. Get it out there. Don't let it go back and forth. Now the next part of your upper body is the right arm. Now what you see is people draw back, and when their clicker goes, they let go. Their arm is not in the same spot. It's only the clicker that's in the same spot. The pressure can be different. So, if you take your arm and you just go back and let it go there, and watch, touch your face. See, every time I put it back there, that's as far as it goes, and it goes to the same spot on my face. Now, what happens is when people try to shoot and they're anchoring at the corner of the mouth, you see, if you're standing and you hold your head here a little bit, well, now my anchor is there. But what if I stand up slightly and shoot the next shot? Well, now my anchor's in a different spot. So if you go to a permanent anchor like the corner of your mouth every time, you're not going to be consistent. You're only going to be consistent if you get it out full and back full and let it relax. That's the same length. This is not the same length. So if your head goes forward or back, your anchor will. Very bad. So what I want you to do is to reach out and draw and let it just hang by itself. Got nothing to do with where your anchor is or your eyes or your head. Nothing. It's just the upper body. Get it out there and let it stretch and then relax so it falls in line. That's where it should be. At that point, you can put your anchor on your hand, because you know that if it's always the same length, your hand is in the same spot. So bring your anchor to your hand. Do not bring your hand to your anchor. That can vary. Starting to get it? Are you getting it? Out. Relax. Be in the same spot. Get in and take a look. So we draw and we relax first, let it all line up, and then we aim, okay? First, draw, relax, second, aim. That's the sequence. Anyhow, enough talking right now. Take a couple shots and then I'll tell you some more stuff. Okay, back in a minute. Okay, guys. One of the things that I've found is that I have a little nose anchor. I'll explain it to you in a minute. I'll do it a couple of times and then I'll explain it. So remember, tug, put it on, line it up before you even start. Okay, that's what I call a nose anchor. Now, I'm going to explain something to you. If I take my hand, and let's say we take a pen. Now, everybody's hands are different. Everybody's noses are different. Okay, so this is not going to work exactly for you, but the principle will. That is, when I have my hand, I bend my hand at 90 degrees like that, and the arrow would sit right about there. Now, you notice that if I take the end of my finger and put it on the end of my nose, that arrow lines up. Okay? So, a distance for me from the tip of my finger to the arrow would be if I touch my nose. Now, if your fingers are longer, it'll be over farther. And it may not be your nose. You know, you could anchor here or you could anchor here. That's not the point. The point is that there's a distance where things line up. And so this evening, I'm just drawing back, relaxing, and then getting the tip of my nose on the target and letting go. And I just left it like that because, again, this was the first shot of the night, and it's what I'm explaining, but I'll just leave it like this, you know, because, you know, that's just too good to be true. Okay? But that's from having a standard distance from my arrow to my anchor and drawing back, relaxing, letting everything fall in line first, and then putting my nose down and aiming. Back in a minute, boys. Okay, guys. Okay, guys, just taking a couple shots, just lining it up from down here, not really anchoring or doing anything like that, and popping our target without hardly aiming. But I wanted to show you another thing. You know how I showed you about the draw check where you reach out all the way, bring it back and let it relax, and it always goes into the same spot. Then you aim. Well, here's another thing. I find that a lot of times I hear things like, oh, you know, do this with your hand. Well, I find that if you do that with your hand, your fingers move. Or do this with your hand, your fingers move. They even have little tabs, you know, that you can have for your thumb. But if you are pressing here, if you're pressing with your thumb, see how my fingers are moving? I really find that it's better generally not to do stuff like that, not to do weird things with your thumbs and your fingers and stuff. Just let them relax, though I can sort of control the distance. Like there's the length of my thumb, so if I put the string against my hand and pull, if I just put my thumb about like that, that's pretty consistent, but I do not press, I do not hold it there. I just, as a check, and then I just leave it float. Okay, so anyhow, that's another thing that I'm finding is all this trying to torque things and twist things and all this kind of aiming from the anchor. It's a mistake. The eye is the only anchor. It can tell when things are straight. But, you know, even if you just turn around and quickly shoot from your waist, as long as you can get over that arrow, you know, you'll get your hits, you know. Anyhow, I'll be back in a minute. We'll do some more. Okay, guys. So we did a little nose anchor, and then we did a little bit of a chest or waist anchor. And now we're just going to do the eye anchor, which means we don't have an anchor. We're just lining up to our eye. But first of all, we always full draw, completely relax, then we aim. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So anyhow, there's a couple of shots. Now, in doing that this time, again, eye on, front step, back step, put the bow up, put some tension on it, put it on the center line. Once it's on the center line, now all you have to do is make the back straight, because the front is on, right? So there's no anchoring, but each time, relax, let it point where it wants to point, and then look. So this is another style of anchoring, without anchoring, but you'll see that, the group is quite tight. There's all four of them right there in a nice little group. So it does work. Okay, so again, each time we change our style, and yet we always let it relax and hang first and point where it's going to point before we aim. Back in a minute. Okay, guys, so we tried a couple of things. Aiming from the eye or from the waist, or first one on the end of the nose. Well, I want to show you this idea about the nose one again. It's not so that I want you to touch your nose. I just want you to be able to find a distance someplace on your face. But as you've seen, we can shoot in different ways and still hit the target. So this is not the end of the world, but it works pretty good. It gives me a very high anchor. The anchor needs to float. Don't really put your finger on your nose, or if you do, take it back off and let it float a little bit. So I'm not trying to have a pretty anchor or a pretty release or anything like that. I just want it to be straight. Okay, there's four of them. That's good enough. Listen, guys. I want you to be able to line up. And again, what I have found is that if I put my arrow in my finger, this distance from my nose puts the arrow right under my eye. It does, though, again, if I'm back here and I'm not anchoring, I can still shoot like we were just doing. Now, the thing is, I believe that anchors hurt you as much as they help, perhaps more, because if you have your head here, your anchor's here. If you have your head there, your anchor's here. See, so your eye always thinks it's looking straight, but really, you've moved your body position. So the best thing to do is to get it all relaxed, lined up, and fall in place so that it's pointing exactly where you want it to point, and then aim. In this case, I'm getting back, I'm relaxing, I'm allowing the bow to point where it wants to point, and I find that if I've just got my finger here on my nose, it works pretty good. Don't touch your nose. If you do touch your nose, take your finger back off. It's only by not touching that your eye can really tell when things are straight. If you anchor, it will look straight, but your anchor will move. If your anchor isn't moving because you're just hanging there, now you can line that up. Make sense? Anyhow, I guess that's it for the night. Hope you guys have a good night and sweet dreams, and think about all this stuff that I tell you. Oh, and there's our last four shots. Two of them are in that hole in the right, and the other two are just above it, but, they're all right in there. No problem. Think about it. Float your anchor. Float your anchor. Good night, boys.